Hello and welcome. Firstly, and most importantly, I acknowledge the first peoples of this country and hope that my research provides you with a wonderful insight into one aspect of Aboriginal culture. Today, we'll be looking at what is called commonly the Bungwahl fern, or swamp water fern. It was a very important food source of the Aboriginal people in certain parts of Australia. To take you through this journey, we'll look at how the name Bungwahl was derived, where the fern is located, and how the people actually procured and consumed the fern. There are over 850 pages in the draft document to date, after some 10 years of doing this research. This is Bungwahl fern, or the swamp water fern. As you can see, this is the frond. Below that is the rhizome. This is better. The stories differ though, and I suppose all those recollections were different, but they reckon the women went into the swamps like this with digging sticks.
Yep.
After the fire had been through, it was then easy to see where the clump was,
Yep.
get underneath it,
Yep.
and pull up the rhizomes.
Rhizome up, yep.
You can understand why they put a fire through it, can't you?
Is that one?
Ah, yeah. Yep. Look at that, see the white on the inside of him?
Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah, so that's the rhizome, and they're what they call the rootlets sort of coming off it. Yep.
Nice.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, another thing that I read, Kerry, is one fella mentioned that these grow up to 2 foot long.
2 foot long, well,
Well-
give him a couple more years, he would have been 2 foot long, another year, eh?
Well, that's got to be over a foot, that one. So where do we find the evidence about this fern? Joseph Banks and Daniel Solander were with James Cook in 1770 when they landed at Botany Bay. During this voyage, Banks and Solander collected some 30,000 plant specimens, including T. indicum at Botany Bay. In 1788, Matthew Flinders arrived with the first fleet. Flinders referred to fern root being roasted and consumed by the people. Now to looking at this name of Bungwahl. It is not a word in any language dictionary or vocabulary in southeast Queensland from Caboolture through to Bundaberg. Around Newcastle, it was known as the Worimi territory. A special chopper was initially identified in this territory, and it was named the Worimi chopper. Subsequently, again, the Worimi chopper was identified to the south and to the north of Newcastle. Now, further north is Bungwahl or Bungwahl. That means place of the swamp fern roots. Further north, we get to Port Macquarie, and there, Bungwa means swamp or water. Even further north, to the west of Evans Head, is Bungwahlwallaban. There, it means swamp where fern roots grow. We know that 50 kilometres to the east of the current coastline was the old coastline. That was some 10,000 years ago. 6,000 years ago, the coastline actually settled in its current position. The Aboriginal people moved back to the coastline, and there they acquired T. indicum from the swamp surrounds. It became a major food source for them. I have identified T. indicum as being just south of Sydney at Kiama, all the way through to the northwest point of Western Australia. Fires cleared the undergrowth, And as shown, the fern readily resprouts. You can see the croziers or fiddleheads now emerging from the hummocked ground. Once the fern has fully established in the open, it will cover vast areas and grow to a height of approximately 1 metre. In the undercover of the paperbark trees, however, it will grow to 1.5 metres or even more. Prior to the introduction of the European ground flower, the Aboriginal people acquired the rhizomes and made them into their own flour. This was a substantial food source. In 1834, Britain referred to the Bungwahl fern root as being very nutritious to the Moreton Bay people. As shown, those rhizomes have a high nutritional value. The fibre content is also extensive. Within the rhizomes, the flour produced substantial carbohydrates, which could be slowly absorbed into the body. I am sure everybody has heard of the 3 shipwrecked sailors, Pamphlet, Finnegan and Parsons. They were shipwrecked at Moreton Island, and during their time in southeast Queensland, fern root, or bungwahl, was their staple diet. There were 4 original writings about this event. In the first, a narrative was taken down from Pamphlet and Finnegan, in which they used Dingawa. Uniacke, who was also on board John Oxley's boat, applied the word Dingawa in his account of the journey. Parsons, who was collected by John Oxley nearly 1 year later, used the word Bungwa, and that is the name that came from Port Macquarie and west of Evans Head at Bungawallaban. Interestingly, John Oxley used the terms Bulwang and Bulwaney in the 2 versions that were written about his journey into Moreton Bay. In the 1836 rescue of Eliza Fraser at Lake Catharaba, which is just north of Noosa, it was said that when we met her, she had been for 2 days without food and had subsisted the most part of the time on a kind of fern root found in the swamps. After the ship, Thomas King, was destroyed, Captain Walker went ashore at Double Island Point, which is near Rainbow Beach. In an interview with Walker, he said that Pamwell is the root of the fern which they roast and then pound on a block of wood with a stone. It is their principal vegetable diet and is to them what bread is to an Englishman. Now some more evidence about the harvesting of Blechnum indicum. Andrew Petrie in 1841 made a journey along the Maroochy River. He said we passed a number of blacks digging for roots in the swamps. In 1847, Angus referred to the Aboriginal people clearing the undergrowth by burning it.
It was probably once every 4 years reading the country and that.
Yeah.
You know, he'd be reading the country and that to see when it was going to burn off. But I definitely think, it would have been easier to access by people burning and stuff and get into some of these freshwater, all the resource areas here.
In the 1904 remembrances of Tom Petrie, it was written that Bungwahl was first roasted, then scraped and cut up finely with sharp stones on a log when it was ready to eat. Bungwahl was generally eaten with fish or flesh, as we use bread, though also eaten separately. In a camp, my father says one would hear the chop chop continually all over the place. As this food was prepared, it was very much used.
Yeah, I definitely think that there would have been places where you went back and processed all this stuff, like in our camps and stuff like that.
Well, they reckon the women, they would take back big bundles of this rhizome and it would last in camp for a few weeks. Stuff like those tools, They must have had caches of them, or they just left a lot of them behind at campsites, because when you think you're travelling along looking for food, you're not going to be carrying a heap of rock with you, are you?
No, that's why, we've come across it, there's a lot of these campsites have got, there's a lot of tools in them, They can come back the next year, like, it could be a kitchen for them,
Well, I think we know that virtually down from Sydney all the way through to that Bundaberg area, it was rich in resources, and they had campsites every couple of kilometres along there. Dr. Joseph Bancroft is credited with these photos at Bribie Island. Michael Aird identified Johnny as being the person using the chopper in this photo. Tongwin and Dingawa are two words that have appeared in Bancroft's writings. The words actually come from the Jandai language group on Stradbroke Island. Photo 2 shows Johnny with a headband. He still has the chopper resting on the rhizome. Of course, I'm just a researcher, so I haven't got the practical knowledge like that, but it comes from reading all of the articles that have been through and the theses that have been written on this. And you're right, there were apparently two main ways, and one was either chopping it up and the other was grinding it up. But you read all different versions about what the process was in going through that. My research shows there were several stone types used to process the fern rhizome. Igneous rocks were mainly used as a uniface rock type. Uniface being it is split down the middle on one side, whilst the other side is the cortex or outer surface. It would be called a Bungwahl pounder. The second type of stone is what we call a biface artefact or tool. This stone has been split down this side and this side. It also has a sharp edge. There are 4 different types of stone tools that have been identified as being used in the processing of the Bungwahl fern. In the first are the top and bottom grinding stones. Interestingly, in southeast Queensland, these were more igneous or hard type stones compared with sedimentary or the sandstone type rocks. Well, Kerry, these that have been provided for today's show that's a genuine bottom stone. And as you can see, it's not really a sandstone. And this is the same type of blocky stone I was been using in other examples. See how the flat side is there? They still call it the blocky stone, but look at this.
Look at that.
Now you couldn't cut with that, call it a chopper. So this old fella that I was talking to, he reckoned that some of these, they would pound, grind,
multi-purpose.
Pound, grind.
Yep.
And it makes sense. And you see all these flattened, rounded type edges just from moving that around like that. So this is that rhizome I pulled out down there in the swamp that's over 30 centimetres in length. Look at the flesh inside there.
Yeah, good feed.
Now what we'll do is try and break this fella up. As I said, normally they would have roasted this up, take off this outside layer, like you did before, Kerry. But some of the articles say this outside layer would have been just left in there because it was already roasted and cleaned anyway, just put into the mix. So I'm trying to work out if part of the process would have been using the chopper. Did they actually put it down on a log and chop it up like that, and then put those little pieces over here on the grindstone, and then use something like this fella and grind those pieces around, and from time to time pound it down a bit, grind it around, pound it down? So we'll just use this demo rock and pretend this is our bloodwood log. And so they could have gone just like that. And that'd be enough to break those water vessels.
Yep.
And then that could just go on there.
And chopped.
And chopped. So it's just...
Chopped up.
Yep. Look at that breakdown.
Yeah, it's pretty good, eh?
When they ground it up, apparently those steels that are through it, the water vessels, they're very stringy and tough. My information is they stayed in there and they just ground them up and put a bit of, they put ants in them, put crab in them.
Yeah. Right, yep.
And that was for the grinding type process. And either, because kids would be very quick to eat this stuff, they just grab it like that.
Yep.
Apparently the women beat them off so they could bake it up and make it into little cakes or biscuits.
Yep.
And if that had been dried, it'd be a flour now.
Exactly. All that moisture would be out of it.
Yep. So there, you put it on the coals from there and put it into a biscuit. In less than 200 years, on the coastal areas of southeast Queensland, we have witnessed significant destruction to the T. indicum habitat.
Yeah, I think it's important that, we have all, different types of people looking at this stuff and that, so, a lot of we've lost a lot of stuff, but it's definitely important for us to be looking through the bush and that and seeing what was used and how we could use it, so we can teach the younger generation so it doesn't get lost, we've got to protect a lot of this stuff so we can bring our kids through here and walk through, or they can bring their kids through.
I mentioned earlier that development is covering the T. indicum habitat. Are those people in council and developers protecting this at least 6,000-year-old history? It is incumbent on all of us that whenever we see T. indicum to say, where are the campsites, and therefore, where are the artefacts?